My name is Ellen Harrington. I'm the director of the Deutsches Film Institute and Film Museum in Frankfurt, Germany. And I am not a film archivist by training. I'm an exhibitions curator and a film programmer. So I'll shift back to the other microphones. I came about a year and a half ago as the director of a film institute in Germany and had to learn the landscape in Germany. And I hope I'm not one of the people Thomas mentioned. You know, having to support the team in the Film Archive, of course, and all of our other divisions, and then I'm maybe the one talking up to our potential funders. And I'll talk a little bit about the history of the institution, our activities, and how we try to position the Film Archive and, of course, our other activities in a very complicated landscape. So this institution is, the seeds of this institution were created in 1949, immediately after World War II, and something called the Deutsches Institut für Filmkunde, the German film heritage organization, was founded in Wiesbaden. It's the first such organization in Germany, and it was meant to be the first film archive in Germany. Over the years, because of the way that German cultural policy developed, most of the arts responsibility was left to the individual states throughout the country. And federal arts policy had less control, again, partly because of the history of World War II. So we developed a film archive in the state of Hessen, and several other major film archives and film institutions developed in other regions of the country. And most of them get support from their state. Most of the federal funding actually only comes from projects. So it's quite a complicated landscape. In addition to that, we had several mergers over the years. There was something called the Kommunales Kino in Frankfurt, which is one of the many cinema programs throughout the country. That was absorbed into the new Film Museum that was opened in Frankfurt in 1984. The two organizations merged, but both of the names were actively used, and it was a little bit confusing for our funders, for the public, even for our professional colleagues. And so when I arrived, we actually commissioned a survey, and I think we came up with 27 different names for our organization. And we realized that one of the ways that we needed to move forward was a better communication strategy. As a director, that was something that I could take in hand. You know, we had to identify our audiences. We have our professional colleagues and peers. We're at conferences like this throughout the world all the time. Then we have an active film museum with an audience that's coming, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We have a lot of online visitors, and then we have these people, these government people at these different levels, city, state, federal, and then in different private foundations that are funding us. So we did a formal merger of all of our entities and came up with a new name last year. We wanted for a moment to have DFI, Deutsches Film Institute, but the Danes got there first. So we are Deutsches Film Institute and Film Museum. We have about 200 employees at 6 different locations. We have a film museum in Frankfurt with a very active cinema program. We have a new research center called the DFF Fassbinder Center, which I'll talk about shortly. We have a text archive at the German National Library. We have our technology history archive. And then in Wiesbaden, we actually have our film archive with our distribution business. And we have our Go East Film Festival. And we also have one other film festival based in Frankfurt, which is a Young Audiences Festival. With our touring programs and a lot of our film screenings throughout Germany and elsewhere, we had about 365,000 in-person engagements in 2018, about 3 million online visitors overall to our various portals. And we were lucky last year, we had some good exhibition programs. We were able to increase our museum attendance by about 20% and about 9% increase in our cinema program, which we think is really bucking the trend. We have about 900 actual film screening events every year with a lot of filmmakers, a lot of German premieres, a lot of digital restorations, and we really try to talk about the life cycle of film with all of our visitors. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but whether they're coming to the cinema, the museum, coming online, or whether we're doing programs for professional audiences or also any potential sponsors. We're also quite engaged with European partners. You already saw some material from Cinémathèque Royale de Belgique about the European Film Gateway and iMedia Cities. We are participating in a lot of these platforms, and very often we're actually the technical aggregators. We have very, very good digital technical staff who are helping to manage all of these different projects, and it's one of the ways that our active membership in the FIAF, in the Fédération Internationale du Film, Archive du Film, and then also the ACE, the Association de Cinémathèque Européenne, all of those professional organizations help us, obviously, with co-productions in terms of sharing material for digital restorations, but also borrowing our films. We serve as screening venues for the work that is being done by the others in this room as well. One of our main online activities is the Film Portal DE. It's sort of the IMDb for Germany, I would say, and it is an authoritative database. It's in English also, and last year we had a milestone. We registered over 100,000 films and over 200,000 filmmakers, and it is also the location where all the documentation is taking place for the digitized films that are being done by all of the archives in Germany, and I'll speak about that in a little bit. So this last year, I'll very quickly run through it with the new name. Obviously, we came up with a new hashtag. Please use it if you tag this presentation. New social media. And we also started a lot of new kind of visual tactics. This is a trailer that should play. So you can see we're quite active in a lot of fronts, changing exhibitions, bringing a lot of members into the public for social events, especially in the museum building. In that trailer, you could see some of our digitized films from last year. Were premiered at places like the Battle of the Oxen was shown as one of the major tentpoles of the Munich Film Festival this year. It was the first film made at Bavaria Film Studios, and it was the centennial of the studio, so there was a lot of celebration in Munich, which is the home of that film studio. We came up with a new mission statement to try to clarify who we were, again, because we had such a long history of merging multiple institutions, merging a lot of different constituencies. So talking about the fact that we are a museum, a cinema, archives and collections, festivals, digital platforms, research and digitization projects, and then education. And education for us is one of our real cornerstones. We haven't given up on young people. I know they're watching film in their room, but also we are bringing many, many tens of thousands of students into the building, international students as well as German students, and showing them film in the cinema, doing a lot of workshops on analog film handling, and really helping them understand the way images are sequenced and how images can be perceived not purely as entertainment but as a legitimate art form. So we redesigned our printed materials. We have a new logo. We have a nice fold-out calendar. We have new advertising. This is something that's in the train station in Frankfurt, new banners on the exterior of our building. And this is our new website. And one of the things that we had to confront with designing our new website is to think about who are these different visitors, who are these audiences that are going to come to see us. Some of them are members of the general public, and our public audience is people who are coming to the film program and then people who are attending the museum. About 1/3 are from Frankfurt. Or the region, 1/3 are German, and then the other 1/3 are international. And we have a lot of different language groups coming to the museum, not just from a tourist base, but also within Frankfurt itself. Frankfurt is a place that has over 50% of the residents who are not of German origin. 75% of the children in the kindergartens in Frankfurt speak a different language than German in their home. So we have a core of multilingual, immigrant-based individuals who are our local constituency, and then we have, visitors coming from Asia, we have visitors coming from South America, from throughout Europe, from America and Canada. So we've had to really confront how do we tell our story to these people who are on the front lines of going and telling their friends, I went to this museum, I saw this amazing film, I learned something about film restoration, why is film important? This is building audiences for the future. Maybe it's building future filmmakers, we hope. And then, of course, the other thing that we've been doing a lot of, besides trying to interact with our public a little bit more actively, this is actually, we finally have online ticketing, and we changed our public hours also to have a late night on Friday night instead of Wednesday, which was a historic open night and was not very popular. But we've built a more active public program, I would say, that also involves a lot of working with the media. Last year, I came into the institution. I came from Los Angeles, so that attracted a lot of press attention. It was the 70-year anniversary of the Film Institute. It was the 35-year anniversary of the Film Museum. It was the launch, I will explain shortly, of our Fassbinder Center. And it was also the launch of a long developing program of film digitization funding at the federal level in Germany. So we were able to start really getting out and telling our story and getting it on television, in magazines, in newspapers, so that we could then turn around and use these tools to share with the funders at all these different government levels and even private funders. One of the things that we did for our 70-year anniversary is a video installation. It was an overview of 70 years of German cinema in 70 minutes, and there was one film representing each year, not always the prize-winning film, but something that had a cultural impact. And this is something that we did as a gallery installation, but now we can use it for other reasons, and the DVD is very popular in our federal government offices. They've been watching it and paying attention to it. We brought in an exhibition from London, from the Barbican Center, called Digital Revolution, which has done very well, and it looks at the intersection of digital in all of the arts, including cinema, but music, video, fine art production, gaming even, and it's allowed us to really talk about the transition from analog to digital and what does that mean for our daily business, including our film archive, and also the digitization of non-film archive non-film collections, things like posters, documents, other materials from this history of film production. We also try to bring in collections. This is another way to not only increase our holdings, our value as a research center, and the opportunity to do exhibitions, but it is a very good way, again, to stay in the news cycle. And as a director, this is an important mandate for me. The Maximilian Schell collection was acquired by the Film Institute, and we are now in the process of opening an exhibition in December, and it will have a beautiful catalog, and it will also tour. You probably know we're also the institution that for a long time has toured the big Stanley Kubrick exhibition. This exhibition was in Barcelona last year and achieved 147,000 visitors. It's in London right now at the Design Museum, and they're getting close to about 200,000 visitors. And then a small portion of it will go to the Museum of the Moving Image in New York in 2020, and it will be our boutique exhibition about the 50-year anniversary of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which we actually premiered last year in our museum in Frankfurt. As mentioned, it was a 70-year anniversary this past year. April was actually the founding anniversary. And so we did 3 days of events with different stakeholders, garden parties and tours with our professional colleagues from our museum and archival community. But also we brought Monica Gruters, our state minister at the federal level for cultural policy, and then also the other ladies in the photograph. This is Juliana Lorenz from the Fassbinder Foundation, Angela Dorn, who's our state minister, and we had our city minister, and we gave them all the chance to speak and cut the ribbon. And it worked out really nicely because this was a chance, as I say, to really focus on the fact that we were bringing a major collection to Frankfurt with the acquisition of the Rainer Werner Fassbinder estate. We were opening a new study center that would have a great public face in a very central location in Frankfurt, adjacent to Goethe University, where we have our master's degree program in film culture. It's a program that focuses on archiving, presentation, and programming. And I will tell you, we have many more applications than we could possibly accomplish or accept, and we have 100% job placement. I know many of your institutions have hosted our students as interns, and then they're actually going on to really successful job placement in festivals, in cinema tech programming, in archival work. We've actually now have replicated the program. In October, I'll be in Jos, Nigeria, where the National University and the National Film Archive will actually replicate our curriculum, and we will be exporting that training program. And then many of the Nigerian experts at the archive and at the university are coming to Frankfurt and Berlin to do long, extended, embedded trainings within our own facilities. I think that's my last slide, but I'm going to briefly tell you a little bit about the National Digitization Project, because I have just 3 minutes. So, we, at the federal level in Germany, over long years of discussion, there was an understanding that there needed to be more stable funding for digitization. Again, they understand the process. They don't really understand all of the long-term cost implications. We have a real problem with storage of digital materials, and creating a digital repository is a big, big task that awaits us. We also have to budget in all of the conversions, this perpetual cycle of converting digital material. However, we've achieved this concept, at least, that for the cinemas and for streaming platforms and for the way that people are consuming media now, to take cultural heritage materials from German film history and digitize them must be done, and it must be paid for at the federal level. And so a consortium of the Federal Culture Ministry, the Federal Film Funding Organization, which also provides money for film production, and then the 16 federal states just voted to spend $100 million over the next 10 years, so $10 million each year, on film digitization. It's an application process, so we and the other archives must apply, and the criteria are basically curatorial or conservation-based, and so you can argue for obscure films, you can argue for titles that sometimes you're quite surprised are endangered. Some of the more recent films, as we all know, have unstable color stock, for example, from, say, the 70s or 80s. So this process is now underway, and one of the things that we are tasked with doing is making sure that these get into the cinemas. We do have a distribution business. Last year, we distributed about 900 films, primarily in German-speaking territories, and one of the cornerstones of the digitization process is that for us to get funds for the films we apply, we must have rights. We must have some screening rights. Even if the underlying rights remain with the producer, we must be able to send these films out to the cinemas. So that is an overview of how we have gone from an institution that had a lot of different messaging, 2 different websites, a lot of different names, and a complicated history. We know it takes a long time to do what people call a rebrand and to get people comfortable with the new design, the new name, the new website. We're using dff.film as our domain. In Germany, people have to get over the fact that it's not .de, but they're learning. So this is how, from my position, my responsibility, I try to take the good work of our archivists, our curators, our education team, our festival directors, and dispense it and share it with the people who are coming to us, our professional colleagues, our public guests, our cinema guests, people who are seeing our films at festivals, our touring exhibitions, but also that layer that has to make decisions and say on an ongoing basis, this is worth funding, this is a national cultural priority, and this institution is doing a responsible job with our money. So I don't have all of the beautiful pie charts that the CNC has. Maybe someday I will come back with some beautiful pie charts. But for now, we've begun well, and I think that we have the ear of the politicians that are important to us, and we're growing our public at the same time. So thank you very much.